Hey, do I have to point this towards him?
No, this
doesn't
right
matter.
There. This part right there.
Oh, okay. So then just like this.
Okay, meeting starting. Meeting starting. Now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, is Pepe.
My name is Pepe, I'm a drug addict. You know, when I go to AA meetings, I introduce myself as an alcoholic, and then when I come to NA meetings, I introduce myself as a drug addict. And I used to introduce myself, as a drug addict and an alcoholic. I stopped doing that because it means the same thing. An alcoholic and a drug addict, there's no difference. There's absolutely no difference. The only difference between an alcoholic and a drug addict is the chemical. In the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about this, that what we use is only a symptom of what the problem really is. And this is what it is. The chemical we use is only a symptom, or you could call it a side effect, or an end result of what the problem really is. For many years, I didn't know what the problem was. And I think that I think my recovery began when I first was introduced to this fellowship. Even though I really didn't get really involved in AA or in NA, because I didn't work the steps. I didn't take any inventories. I didn't do anything like that. In fact, I never spoke. But I just used to attend meetings. And this was in 1950, the beginning of 1956. This was when I was in Texas. I was in a hospital, and I was just beginning to serve a 5-year thing for the federal government. And I was sentenced to a federal hospital in Texas to do my 5 years. And, I had been in institutions before that. In fact, the first time I ever got busted was when I was just a youngster. In fact, it was my first possession in 1948. And I was sent to a reform school up north, and in fact, Mike was there at that time. And I had learned at a young age that the way you make it out of these institutions is you go along with the program. So when I went to Fort Worth, I was beginning these 5 years, and I would be eligible for parole in 20 months. Didn't mean that I was going to make it, but I was eligible for parole in 20 months, and I wanted to look good when I went before the board. So I got involved with the program. I enrolled in group therapy. I enrolled in individual therapy. I went back to school. In fact, I had quite a few series of hypnosis therapy. And along with that, I began to attend meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And at that time, we used to have a little group there that we used to call it Alcoholics and Drugs Anonymous. And people from the outside used to come in. There were AA people. They'd come in, and they tell, they share their experience, strength, and hope with us. And I went to these meetings until I got out of there. I got out, I did about 25 months, and they grew. Now, but during the time I was there, I was introduced to this program. And I had heard a lot of people that came in from the outside, and they talked about not only being addicted to alcohol, but also to pills and to weed and a bunch of other stuff, And one of the things that really impressed me is there was a doctor that used to come in from Dallas. When I met this doctor, he had been in the institution. And this guy's name was Dr. Smith. And he came back to tell us how he was doing on the outside, and this is why I used to go to these meetings, to listen to this guy, and also because I wanted to get involved with the program, and I wanted to look good when I went before the board, and I did. During the time I was there, I completed my high school, thing. I got an equivalency certificate. I had some credits in a college, and I really had given myself to this program. And it was during the time there that I began to really, begin to understand what the hell was wrong with me. I realized that I was emotionally a very disturbed guy. In fact, that I had been an emotionally disturbed guy ever since just a tiny kid. And they told me a lot of things about myself. They told me that I was of an aggressive personality, and they told me that I had a lot of inferiority complexes and shit like that. And before that, I didn't know what those words meant. I really didn't. And they told me a lot of what was wrong with me, but they never told me what to do about it. The people there at the hospital didn't have the answers. When I left the hospital, they gave me $30. They gave me a suit of clothes. They gave me a ticket back to Los Angeles. And when I hit the streets, I panicked. I panicked. I didn't have any place to go. I was going back to L.A. I was hoping that maybe I could stay with one of my relatives. I didn't have a job to go to. I didn't have anything going for me. And I was released with another guy that used to live up in the Temple district. And when we were sitting in the bus depot, he said, "You know what? I'm going to run across the street and I'm going to get a little half a pint of whiskey, and we'll take it with us on the bus." And I said, "Man, that's what I need. I need something to calm my nerves. I'm nervous, So he went and he got this thing and we got on the bus and we started drinking. It takes 36 hours to drive from Fort Worth, Texas to LA by bus. And I think I got drunk and I passed out. I woke up and I got drunk and I passed out. By the time I got to LA, I was in bad shape. And to make a long story short, I ran for 19 months. I never reported to my PO. I never reported to nobody. I ran crazy for 19 months. And then I got violated. And the way I got violated is my father turned me in. The reason why he turned me in is because I had ended up in a hospital, in the psychiatric unit of the general hospital, and I almost died. I had been using methadone. Now this was long before they used methadone, before they were using methadone for drug treatment. And I used to get it in little capsules. Methadone in capsule form is called Bellotta. No, it's called dog food. It's a derivative that was invented by the Germans during the war. And I was living with a little girl who was turning tricks in Hollywood. And one of her tricks was a doctor. And I used to get all the dollar clean that I wanted. And I had a pretty bad habit. I was using somewhere between 100 and 130 milligrams a day for 19 months. And then I kicked, I went to the hospital and I tried to kick. And they gave me something for the nausea, and they gave me something for the pain, they gave me something for the diarrhea, and they gave me something for this and something for that, and I almost died. I went into convulsions and I went into seizures. See, I didn't know, methadone habit is a stomach habit, and it's the worst kind of habit you can have. And my father realized, man, that if I don't do something with this stupid kid, he's going to kill himself. So he turned me in. I didn't have sense enough. I was a sick guy. I was very, very sick. And I went back to the institution. I went back to Fort Worth. They sent me back there. And I was there about 6 weeks in what they call the orientation unit. And you're there about 6 weeks, and then after that they decide whether they're going to assign you into the regular population or they're going to have you kicked out of there and transferred somewhere else. And in my case, they told me that they had done the best they could do for me. I remember the doctor telling me, he says, you know what, man, I know there's really nothing we can do for you. You're a habitual drug user, and there isn't anything. We did all we could for you. And the only thing that's in store for you is that you're going to end up killing yourself with drugs, or you're going to end up committing some terrible crime and spend the rest of your life in the penitentiary, or you're going to end up in the crazy house, in a nut house. He said, because there's nothing we can do for you. We don't know what else to do. So they transferred me out of there and they sent me to a place in Leavenworth, Kansas, to finish out my last, well, a little bit less than 3 years that I owned. And when I got there, I started to attend the meetings there too. I attended meetings, AA meetings while I was there, and then I was transferred to Terminal Island. When I was there, I made the meetings, and when I was 6 months short, they transferred me to a camp in Sept, Arizona. And when I got there, I attended meetings until I got out. When I got out, I came to AA, and I came to NA. For the first time in my life, I was able to stay clean and sober for 6 months. I didn't use anything. I made a lot of meetings. In fact, I made meetings every night. And during that time, I met this young lady. We started living together. I met her on the program. She was an alcoholic. And after about 6 months, I went to a party, and there was a lot of drinks being served. And I was offered something to drink, and I said, no, thank you. And a little bit later, somebody else asked me, would you like a beer? I said, no, thank you. I was able to say no, thank you for about maybe 6, maybe 7 times. I don't know. And then I thought, well, what the shit, man. 1 beer ain't going to hurt me. 2 beers, the most 3. And that's it, man, and I'll cool it. And I really thought that I could do it. So I had a beer. And I was drunk for 3 days on beer. Just on beer. I didn't drink anything else. Just on beer. And most of that 3 days I was in a blackout. I remember waking up, it was about the 4th day. I woke up in the morning, I was sick as a dog. I hadn't eaten anything all that time. And I thought, well, I'll take a little ease, and then I'll get back to my knees. Just to get me over this terrible hangover. And I ran crazy for another 4 months. During that time I was there, running the streets, I couldn't shut it off. I knew where the answers were. I knew where the answers were. And I went to a meeting one night because I knew this girl that I used to live with. You know, when I started using, I left her. When I got drunk, I left her. And I knew that she used to go to this particular meeting every Tuesday night. So I went to that meeting that night and I told her that I wanted to talk to her. So I took her home that night and I told her that I wanted to get back. I wanted to get back to the program, but I was having a hard time because I had a thing, you know, a physical thing going. I couldn't do it by myself. I couldn't kick by myself. I was able to maybe go 3 days the longest, and then I'd have to take something. I just couldn't do it by myself. But he says, why don't you call your brother? At that time, my brother was at the Synagogue. I called my brother, and he says, come on down tomorrow morning. We'll help you. So I went to Synagogue. That was on December the 6th. Just before Christmas time, I went to Synagogue. I stayed there until Christmas Day, and I left Synagogue on Christmas Day of 1962. I came back to this program. I haven't had fix, or a drink, or a pill, or nothing since then. It's been a little over 18 years. You know, when I came back, I got involved with this program. I was very fortunate that I had a guy who became my sponsor that really helped me. I'll be indebted to this guy for the rest of my life. And he told me, you know what the problem is? You know what your problem is that you are spiritually sick. That's your problem. You know, and I have been to a lot of hospitals, and I've been to a lot of psychiatrists, and I've been to a lot of shit, and they told me a lot of things of what was wrong with me, but nobody ever told me that. Nobody ever told me that my problem was that I was spiritually sick. And a side effect from that is that I use chemicals, and that I'm full of fear, that I'm full of doubt, that I'm insecure, that I'm emotionally unstable. These are all side effects of the problem, which is I'm spiritually sick. He says this program of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous is an answer to that problem. It's a spiritual program for spiritually sick people. He says this is why it's very important to get into the steps. You have to get involved in working the steps. You have to make them part of your life, because in so doing, you start to get well. I really didn't begin to get the full significance of what he meant until later on in my sobriety. You know, I began to realize that the first 6 months that I had on this program, and then I got drunk again, and then I started using again. I was trying to figure out why did this happen? I could see it now, because first of all, I did not work these steps. I really didn't. I had done nothing about the problem. And things had gone real good for me during that 6 months. I went to work in a bakery, and bakers make good money. My dad used to be a baker, and he taught me how to be a baker when I was a little tiny kid. And I went to work at the bakery when my dad used to work at one time, and they hired me. And I was making very good money. And this girl that I was living with, she was working, and she was making good money. We began to have good things. I began to have a lot of money in my pocket. I was driving a pretty good car. And I began to believe in my head that I had done it. The program really didn't do it. I had done it. And I I was beginning, like always before, beginning to rely on my own resources. And what happened is I fell on my ass. When I came back, I told myself I would never make that mistake again. So far I haven't. Now I believe in a higher power. I believe that this higher power, which I choose to call God, is the reason why I'm sober today, and I still have my sanity today. I wish I could say, things have gone just beautiful all during the time I've been on this program. They haven't. I've got problems today, like everybody else. I've got very serious problems. I go along 100% with what Diana was saying. She's grateful that she became a drug addict because that brought her here to this program. I feel the same way. I feel very lucky that I was a drug addict and an alcoholic, and this is why I came here. Because here are the answers. One of the things that I was having a great deal of difficulty with all my life was pressure, adversities in life. The pressures of everyday living. For some reason or other, I have never been able to handle any kind of pressure. Now, this program has helped me and has prepared me to face a lot of pressure that I've been able to face during the time I've been on this program. I'm grateful for that, because I don't know what the hell I would have done if it wasn't for this program. And the biggest challenge, the biggest thing that has happened during my sobriety is when we found out that my two boys are sick. I have two boys with muscular dystrophy. They have a disease that is called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. There's no cure. There's nothing they can do. And in fact, it's one of the biggest killers of children. Since we found out that my boys were sick, they were walking at this time. And they're not walking typically. They're both in wheelchairs. And the oldest one has deteriorated to the point that he has to have a motorized wheelchair because he doesn't have the strength to push himself. The other little guy is just about ready for a motorized wheelchair. And when I first found out about this, I almost went crazy. I had a great deal of difficulty dealing with this. One of the first things that happened to me is that I began to blame other people. I began to blame myself. I had a great deal of anger inside me. I was angry at the world. I was angry at God. I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand what the hell was happening. Maybe I'll never understand. Even today, I still don't understand what's happening. But I'm very fortunate. I feel very fortunate today that these two little guys were sent to me, to my wife. They're very unusual kids, very unusual kids. The oldest one especially. He's never snivelled, he's never complained, and he has to have everything done for him, everything. He has to be dressed, he has to have his hair combed, he has to have his teeth brushed, he has to have everything done for him. And you get to meet this little guy, within just a few short time, you will forget that he's handicapped because of the way he is. He's very unusual. I've met a lot of brave people in my life, a lot of pretty heavy people in my life. But he is about the heaviest that I've ever known. I don't say that just because he's my kid. I say that because it's the truth. In fact, he is the one who has helped me deal with this problem. One thing that I noticed about him, and he told me this later on, that when he realized that I was having a great deal of trouble with this, he told me not to worry. He said, and he told me that he was not afraid to die. In fact, he told me, death is not the end. It's only the beginning of something else. Now, I'm talking to a little 14, 15-year-old kid at this time. He says, you know, the only sad thing about this whole situation is that if I do go, we'll only be separated for a while. But we'll see each other again. Maybe it won't be father and son. We'll see each other. And I begin to realize that this guy, little kid, has a strong belief in a higher power, something I never had. He really believes that God exists. And he feels safe. He feels very secure and very safe. Spiritually, this kid is in excellent condition. And you know, this has been my problem all my life. This is why I have so much trouble dealing with this thing. Because, you know, even though I've been sober all these years, spiritually, I'm not all that well. And he has helped me with this. I remember the beginning, you know, I couldn't accept it. I couldn't understand why they were not well. And I didn't want to accept it, and I couldn't. And this caused me a great deal of difficulty inside. Like I said, I didn't drink, or I didn't use, but what happened was that I lost interest in a lot of things. When this happened, I used to have a roofing company. I was a boss of my own company. I was making more money than I had ever made in my life. I had more things materially than I had ever had in my life. And I lost everything because I couldn't handle it. You know, it just didn't mean anything to me. And I felt guilty because I remember that many times, like on Saturday afternoons, he would ask me, Dad, let's go to the park. Let's go on a picnic. And I said, no, not today, man, because I'm busy, man. I've got to run these estimates. I've got to get these jobs lined up. I've got to make all this money. And I didn't have enough time to take him to a lousy-ass picnic. And all these things came back to me. And I found out that they were very sick boys. And man, the guilt just tore the shit up. Anyway, I don't feel that way today. I don't feel guilty and I don't feel angry anymore. I've been able to deal with it because of this program. I ran away from home because I went crazy at home. There was a lot of arguing and a lot of fighting, and I finally punched my old lady out and cut her face, and I had to leave. I had to leave before I hurt somebody. And I thought to myself, shit, you've got enough problems without me. And I had to leave. I had to leave before I hurt somebody. And I thought to myself, shit, you've got enough problems without me. So I left home, and I stayed away from home for a year and a half. And what I did is I buried myself in work. I worked 2 full-time jobs for a year and a half. I never took a day off. I was never late. And then I just worked. I just worked. I couldn't handle it. I didn't get drunk. I didn't use. But I found an escape in that. And with the help of the program, I realized that I had to get back home. I had to learn how to face it. This was a reality. You know, I couldn't just shove it all on my wife. And by this time, she was having a great deal of difficulty dealing with it herself. I went back home, and I told my wife that I wanted to move in. I said, look, I don't expect anything. I don't expect to live in the same bedroom with you. And the reason why I want to come home is I want to help you with the children. I want to do what is best for them. She said, come on home. And that's what the arrangements were. There was nothing between my wife and I. We just had a mutual bond. We were going to do everything we could for the two children. If they were going to go, we were going to make it as comfortable as possible during the time that we lived. One of the things she wanted to do is she wanted to leave Illinois. She was having a lot of trouble here in LA with the school system and with... So we moved out. And I moved out to a little place in Northern California. And I got a little ranch out there. And we had animals and we grew all our own food. And we raised all our table meat. I raised all my pork and lamb and beef, and we had horses. And we were up there for a little over 6 years, and I didn't work all during the time I was up there. All the time I was there, I spent with my family. And we went camping, we went fishing. I used to live in a little place right in the middle of it. It was surrounded by lakes and streams. In fact, my backyard, about a little less than a quarter of a mile, I get out of my back door and I walk into the woods. And I go about a quarter of a mile and it will drop down in the Sacramento River. We used to pass there. My boy and I used to get up early in the morning. We used to go out and catch steelhead and trout, salmon, right out of the river. I began to get close to my family. And I began to try to make life a little better for all of us. It was hard. We're back now. We're back. I'm back in LA. The reason why we came back is because the hospitals are better here. You've got to be close to the clinics now. And the schools that they go to, they come and they pick them up in front of the house with a special bus that lifts the wheelchairs. And now that they're both going to be on motorized wheelchairs, we've got to be here in the city. I was having a great deal of difficulty getting any parts for his wheelchair when I was up in Reading. I used to have to drive 150 miles to pick up $2 breakfast. It was 6 hours driving, to get a little part for his wheelchair. Now I jump on a car and I'm in Glendale in a few minutes, and it's much easier for them. And their priority. They're the most important thing. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is what this program is all about. It's a program for living. And this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find answers to the problems of life. And these are problems I got. This is a reality. And one of our spiritual principles deals with this. There are 6 spiritual principles that I have found that are contained within the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. And the first principle is the principle of humility. And to me, humility means the willingness to accept the truth. Just the willingness. And I guess it took what it took in my case, to beat my head against the wall for years after years until I became willing. To open my ears and listen. For a long time I thought I knew all the answers. I thought I was pretty sharp. When I finally got here, I realized that my best answers, my best wisdom, my best everything I had going for me almost killed me. That's how sick I was. And it took what it took. And to me, humility is to become willing, just willing to accept the truth. Then there's the principle of honesty. To evaluate and accept conditions as they are. Not the way I would like them to be, but as they are. In my case, for a long time, I didn't want to accept the fact that my children were sick. I fought it. And it caused me a great deal of grief. Seems like now that I begin to accept it, I accept it wholeheartedly. I can deal with it now. Because I have something to deal with. I have something to work at. This is something that I've learned from my kid. Acceptance. One time he told me, these are the cards that were dealt to us in life. There are no other cards. And that's all he said. It's as simple as that. This is a fact. There's no other way. This is how it is. He accepts it. He accepts what he has and he does the best with it. I've never seen such a kid like that. He's pretty active and he's a happy kid. I've had trouble with this all my life. Honesty. It's true, I don't know all the answers. I don't know what the truth is most of the time. But if I keep coming to these meetings and I keep working with my program, I'll know more and more of what the truth is. I believe that. And then there is a principle of faith. When I came, I didn't have any faith in anything. I didn't have faith in God. I didn't even have faith in myself. Since I've been here, I have grown to have faith in God and faith in myself, faith in my friends. And I believe that the longer I stick around, the more I'll develop faith. And there's a principle of courage. A state of mind that will enable me to face whatever I have to face in life without having to take a fix or a pill or a drink or whatever. This courage thing is not easy for me because I've been a coward all my life. All my life I've been a coward. Ever since I was a little kid, I've escaped. I've never been able to face anything. I've been a coward all my life. Even today I have trouble with this courage thing. But when I have trouble with this, I go to my next principle, which is a principle of faith. Gratitude, or you can call it appreciation. I call it gratitude. If I look at my life today, there's always something that I can be grateful for. It's like the fact that I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful I'm a member of this fellowship. I'm grateful that I have these 12 steps in my life and in my home. Because without it, I don't know what I would have done. I'm really, really grateful. I feel very fortunate. Then there's a principle of service. Service to myself, service to my God as I understand Him, and service to my fellow man. There's many times, I'm asked to get up and I have to speak, and I really don't want to talk. I really don't. But I do it anyway. Because I realize that I can only keep what I have by giving it away. I believe that with all my heart. In order to keep what I have to try to share it with somebody else. And I have something today. I have this program. So this is my principles. These are what I try to put into my life. to help me face whatever adversities I had to face. As I said before, without this program, I don't know what the hell would have happened to me. Anyway, what I have put into this program, you know, what I've gotten out of this program compared to what I have put into this program, I've been overpaid. I really believe that I've been overpaid. This is something, this is the heaviest thing that I've ever known in my whole life. And I've been looking for answers a long, long time ago. When I came, I was completely lost. The reason why I was lost is because I had never known and I had never had any personal contact with God. That was my problem. I think this is why, as long as I can remember, I've been full of fear. I felt very alone, very frightened. I used to have this feeling, and I grew up with this feeling. I used to feel like that for some reason or other I wasn't going to make it in this world. I had this feeling. I lost it when I got it. I don't feel alone. I'm not frightened as much anymore. I still have fear. You know, I'm not perfect. You know, I don't have this program by the ass. You know, I'm not Mr. NA. I've got a long shot, man. My shit still stinks, you know. But I'm not the guy I was when I came. I completely changed. I don't think like him. I don't live like him. I don't talk like him. I don't even look like him. I'm a different person. A long time ago, I was reading a book. I have a book at home, and the name of the book is Death Row. And it was this guy, they got busted, and they sentenced him to death. And for quite a few years, this guy fought his case on appeals after appeals after appeals. And eventually, I think it was 6, 7, maybe more, 7, 8 years, something like that, they finally killed him, finally executed him. And another guy had written the story, and they said, and he said, you know, when they finally killed the guy, they killed the wrong man. Because he wasn't the guy he was when he first came in. And I identify with that. I identify with that. They killed the wrong guy. This is what has happened to me. I remember back when I was kicked out of Fort Worth, the doctor had told me that the only way I would ever survive in this world is that there would have to be a drastic change in my whole personality, my whole being. There would have to be a drastic change. And at that time he thought it was something that was completely, utterly impossible. Well, it's happened. That change has happened. Thanks to this fellowship. Thanks to people like you. Who helped me and stood by me. And what more can I say? Thank you very much, and God bless all of us.
Okay, now I have a secretary's report.